But honestly, in the ninth hour, I just realized I couldn't do it anymore. And I think that every entrepreneur, if this is really what you want to do, there's going to be a point where you just can't do anything else. And you have to listen to your body and listen to your mind when it says, like, now is the time. Before Parfait, I was at Wharton Business School. So I spent 2 years there really focusing on entrepreneurship and marketing. And what led me there was my time running my own businesses as really in the world of hair. So I had two hair companies before I went to Wharton. One I did in college and didn't go great. And then the second one I did right after college. And so that was Vanita Hair Boutique. So if I have anybody on here who remembers that, we were live for about 5 years. And I learned everything I could about growing organically on social, about creating looks, really handling customer inquiries and shipping and vendors and, doing the whole 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9 whirlwind. That was my life for pretty much since undergrad through going in. And so I spent a lot of my time really trying to figure out how could I make entrepreneurship my number one thing. My 9 to 5 at the time was my corporate life at Capital One. Great place to work. If you're looking for the corporate life, I was just over it. But it is a great place to work. But I really learned a lot of foundational skills there, a lot of, communication skills and just how to influence people in different rooms and definitely with different motives in mind, and how to influence customers and how to care about them in the way that makes business sense. So spent a lot of time just learning and being a sponge in different environments before I came to a place where I could be the entrepreneur I am today. And so, I got to Wharton, and initially I was focused on entrepreneurship in classes, but my whole point was go to Wharton and then go back to Capital One so they could pay for my school, because that was the gig. I could go back, get my school paid for, go back to corporate life, all of that. But honestly, in the ninth hour, I just realized I couldn't do it anymore. And I think that every entrepreneur, if this is really what you want to do, there's going to be a point where you just can't do anything else. And you have to listen to your body and listen to your mind when it says, like, now is the time. And so for me, what was this, May 2021 was the time to say, all right, take all the risks, don't go back into the golden handcuffs, go and do something that you really are passionate about. And so I had actually met Iso, my co-founder and CEO. She's on the call today, but I had met her and heard about her business very early on when we were both at Wharton. But like I said, I was handcuffed to the Capital One life, and so I wasn't really open to new opportunities. But once I made that decision for myself and I was open to those things, I mean, we had maybe two margaritas, maybe two, and then it was a done deal. I essentially was on the team after that, and I think we just kind of took the brand to where it really needed to be. They had done so much foundational work on understanding a lot of product testing and customer elements, but getting in the hair game is really, really, really hard because it is an intensely fragmented market. Yeah. And so bringing on this knowledge of having sold hair in different venues online, understanding a lot of customer centricity from both my Capital One life, but also being an entrepreneur before, then you add on, that little extra ribbon of Wharton. I think it really all just came together to be the perfect team to build something like Parfait. It is the perfect mix of beauty and technology and really, really innovative manufacturing processes. So I'm always super excited to talk about it. But it's not just me. I just make it look all pretty.
Well, y'all are doing a great job. By the way, guys, make sure that you keep yourselves on mute for us so we can hear Simone and all the gems that she's gonna drop. So I'm sure you can speak to this, Simone, but why Parfait? There's you guys could have created, or Iso could have created a different type of company. What was the whole vision behind Parfait?
Yeah, I mean, the bigger vision is around solving problems for real women, and for Black women like us. Dealing with our textured hair was something we had dealt with our entire lives. And we were the ones that are struggling every single day, trying to feel confident in our lives, trying to find products that fit us, where we don't have to spend tons of money trying to make something that really was never made to work for us, work for us. And really, it's just frustrating. And so, when you get to a point in your life when you have the skills to solve a problem, I think that's, again, that pivotal moment where you have to decide, yeah, we could have all went and had different types of jobs and built different type of tech. But for us, our community came first, and the people we loved came first. And so we all had the problem, and we said, we're going to finally fix it. And so we that's why we really doubled down on all facets. We didn't just decide to make technology. We didn't just decide to make better looking and fitting wigs and faster. We decided that the only way to make the perfect experience for a customer is owning all of those parts. And so it's a lot to manage, but it's the only way to serve end to end.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, I want to mention this, and I honestly hate the fact that I feel, compelled to mention it, but I feel like we don't see enough of this. But Parfait is a team of all Black women, and they've raised about $5 million in venture capital. And so, I think that there are other, teams of all Black women. It's, whether they're 3 co-founders or 4 co-founders or 2. However, I think that we don't hear about it enough. And so I want to make sure that, we shout that out, because I think a lot of times as a people, sometimes we feel like we need to bring in someone that's not Black in order to raise venture capital or just to succeed. And I think that they're a great example of like, hey, we're Black, we're female, we're powerful, we can do it too. So shout out to y'all. Yeah, of course, girl, of course.
Thank you.
One of the things that I wanted to sorry, I'm looking in the comments. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, so when you joined Parfait, ESO had already, started the company, had already done a little, some work before you got there. So once you joined, I guess, what stage was the company at? And, how did you, I'm pretty sure it was crazy, but like, what did your typical day-to-day look like?
Day to day. Well, okay, I'll answer your first question around like what was sort of the state of the business at that time, and then what our day to day was like. So this was summer 2021. So they had gone through some initial testing around vendors and thinking about how should they create the sort of taking a salon experience and moving it into a manufacturing process that also included a level of customization that was informed by technology. That in and of itself is a lot. I mean, the app was basically done. We had a lot of, little things that we had to round out. We needed more data. That's a whole other conversation around how hard it is to build data around people like us. I'm sure people in this room understand that at the surface level. So there was already a lot of work done there, and they had raised a little bit of money so far. So we were in that pre-seed fundraising position. And I know for a lot of people these days, pre-seed versus seed is sort of, from a fundraising perspective, is a little cloudy, but for us, we were genuinely raising a pre-seed, pre-seed. Yeah. We were truly pre-seed. But I mean, the moment I joined, we were in the middle of that race. So I think I may have come on the next week and immediately was on calls with VCs, helping the ladies pitch the business. And for the next, 4 to 6 months, if you include just that little gap between our pre-seed and our seed raise, we were pitching anywhere between 5 to 7 times a day. And then also building the business, looking at customer feedback, running surveys, trying to figure out what vendors could actually lift to colors that we wanted, making sure that our technology was refined and being practicing how can we actually align this sizing and the tint matching to a customer once they put their images in our app. There was just tons of development on that side that really we had to do simultaneously, because we are, I think, first of all, overachievers, but for the whole machine to work, you need the data to tell the technology what to do. And then you need our team who's making the wigs to be able to say, give feedback to the technology. Hey, that was correct, or hey, that was incorrect. But then you add this element of like, what cap do you use? Do you use a dome cap? Do you use a breathable cap? What kind of hair do you use? So all of those things we went through at that time. So I mean, our days were filled with like normal startup sort of supply chain things, big fundraising moments, and then just like trying to rally and get to know each other. I mean, we had spent a little bit of time together, but I still had to get to know my co-founders. And so there was a little bit of that too.
It was COVID during that time. Well, I mean, COVID is still around, but so it's not like you guys were like picking up every chance you got to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, purely. I mean, there's 4 co-founders, but we had a whole other group of people who were also on our team. We had at least, I believe, like 10 to 13 people on the team at the time in different areas. And so, yeah, I mean, we were in the most pure version of the word scrappy during that time, trying to hold it all together, but also make sure that we were building bonds, building a team, and then building a product that we would feel confident going into market with, but also going into rooms with predominantly white men who didn't understand why we needed to change our hair that often, didn't understand that this was a normal price point for hair, all of those things. So a lot going on at the time, still a lot going on, but you know, that's startup land for you.
Yeah. You can't get away from it. Like it's one of those things. It is what it is.
Yeah.
One thing that I found super incredible when you and I were like corresponding through email is this waitlist that you guys built. You know, I think it can be hard to build a 1,000-person waitlist. You know, I think that can be incredibly hard. And you guys built a 10,000 plus person waitlist. And so I want to, you know, I would love you to just share more about, you know, I guess why the decision was to create a waitlist before you launched. And I know, because I recognize some of the names here that joined us. I know some of the founders here, you know, they haven't launched their brands yet. And I think oftentimes we feel like we need to have literally something to sell before we need to have everything figured out before we actually start getting, you know, people on board. Or some people don't believe in doing like a pre-launch waitlist. And so what was the idea behind that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we wanted to have a community built that we could try and ask questions to. I mean, that was the biggest thing for us. So much of our technology is built on actually having our community being a part of how we build this technology. And so we needed to be able to have conversations. We also needed to be able to have conversations about every element of the product, where it comes to type of hair, learning customer preferences, understanding price point sensitivities, understanding, well, hey, if I added X, Y, and Z to this product, would that make you more willing to buy, less willing to buy? Do you really care? And so for us, a pre-launch, a wait list, there was so much more depth to it than just saying, hey, we've got all these people in line. We started building community at that point. And we really thought that we needed this because, one, it was going to take us some time to actually launch. And let's be real, it takes capital to launch. And so we needed to show VCs and investors some level of customer, literally, some level of customer traction to be able to say, yo, people are into this. If we just are able to actually put it to market, people will buy it. But we needed to show that in some way. And so there are different ways of proving customer traction. And it really depends on the type of product you're selling and who your customer is. But for us, we thought the best way that we could really rally and get good customer traction to walk into a room of VCs and feel confident was showing that people were already engaging with our content, already showing interest in our product, and we're actually fueling the development of our product.
I think that was super smart. And I wish that more founders would do that. I think I want to say it's at YC. I didn't go through YC, but I heard at YC they're very big on finding your super users, building that community early on. And I think for whatever reason, we don't talk to our customers enough, if at all. And so that's something that, you know, guys, I want y'all to take away from this conversation. You need to speak to your customers. I mean, look at Simone and her co-founders. They essentially are, or I believe you guys are, your target market, right? And so so you could have easily said, okay, well, we know exactly what we want because it's us, right? We're Black, we're female, we enjoy, you know, a nice wig. And so we can tell, we know what people want because we're the people. But instead, they know that, you know, it's bigger than the 4 of them. They needed to actually talk to their community and get their data, right? And so
Yep, 100%. And I would say too, like, understanding that customer isn't always just the person who has bought your product. I think understanding that you can build community with potential customers who may only be consuming content at first, those are great people to have on your list. You never know. And I think a big thing that we realized when we finally got to market and started doing our beta testing, because we had our wait list, but we were also doing beta testing. We were just trying to absorb as much customer.
Hashtag beta babes.
Yes, hashtag beta babes. It was a good chapter. It was a good moment. But again, like all of our decisions were based on customer data. I think Iso and I both had a very heavy background in making decisions based on data just from our backgrounds. She comes from, Target, Amazon, Microsoft, like big companies who only make decisions based on data. Myself, even though I had sold hair before and I sort of knew, this or that, I'm coming from Capital One, who's also like all of our marketing activities were basically all data. And I last role at Capital One was in customer insights. And so all I did was push customer centricity into business strategy. And so I think for us, we all knew from jump, we need to ask the people what they want.
Collect data. Collect the emails, collect the data. Like,
yeah.
No, I feel you. I definitely feel you. Like I spoke on a panel yesterday during Dallas Startup Week, and I talked about how, like, why aren't people collecting email addresses and talk?
Girl, you need the emails.
You'll be surprised. Like, and whoever's on here today, if y'all are entrepreneurs and you are not collecting emails, like today, once we finish, get on MailChimp, ConvertKit, whatever it is that fits your budget. I think MailChimp, you can start off for free and start collecting emails, create a landing page. Like you have to do it. I'm going to try my best to copy and paste some of the questions that are posted here. But the question that actually just dropped is something that I was getting ready to ask you. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask that now. But I promise I'm gonna try to get to the other ones as well, y'all. Speaking of building that wait list, how did you, how did y'all approach that? Did you do paid ads? The people that you brought on board, were they responsible? And if so, like, how did you find those folks? I think sometimes you can say, oh, you need to build a wait list, but then I think if I'm a new founder, I'm going to be like, well, yeah, but like how?
What does that even mean? Tactically?
Yeah.
Yes. So we actually tried a few different things. We tried Facebook ads. We tried Instagram posts, organic growth. We tried Pinterest. We tried all things. I mean, we have a beauty product. So we were thinking visual. We were thinking, let's do that. But we weren't necessarily ready for someone to like review our product, right? So it was a little bit of an interesting way to kind of come out as a beauty brand. But I think for us, the first thing we did that was, honestly, I didn't plan it at the time, but I think helped us a ton, was having a visual aid to who we were and what we were going to sell really early on. Because in order to even be able to get to a Facebook ad or whatever, you need to have content. So if you don't prioritize content, even if it's you being a thought leader around the space that you're in, you showing early signs of what you're building, like bringing people along the journey of what you're building, identifying yourself as an expert in X, Y, and Z because of this, you need that content first. You can't send out an ad without creative. So I think getting really solid content that you are proud of, that represents your brand. And even if you change your brand like we did, just have it nice, right? Like have it represent. And so I think there's a little bit of investment up front, both from a thought perspective, but also, like you want it to be higher quality. And I know a lot of iPhones can get high quality content. So just doing a little bit of, YouTube University to figure out how can you position your camera and lighting and all that to have really solid content to help support those ads. Because I think so eventually we tried this, tried that. Okay, easy traction. We got the most traction on Snapchat. And why I want to say Snapchat ads, which is a very interesting platform because
tell me more about that. I've never heard anyone say this.
It's a gem. And I've been waiting for Brittany for someone to ask. But no, honestly, at that time, we were literally trying every single pathway, more so not to like prove ourselves that we were here or there because we hadn't launched yet, but we were just trying to say, how can we most efficiently get the name out there and get leads back in? And so we were looking at the efficiency of every campaign style. We were starting on Facebook. We did Facebook and IG campaigns, then only IG campaigns, then campaigns that had different audiences and what have you. And granted, we weren't Facebook people. We had never ran ads, so we learned it on their courses. We learned on YouTube. These are all things that
you didn't just go like click a few different filters, put your card in and go.
Yes, and just be tapped in and really absorb as much content as you can around how to make them work. And they were okay, but Snapchat ended up being such a really fruitful and honestly cheaper option to get mass sort of views, mass impressions. So I would say, especially for a lead gen campaign, an email campaign, those types of platforms where maybe you wouldn't have considered, but just try a campaign out. It really is going to depend on the audience that you're going for and the types of places that they live and frequent. But for us, that ended up being the most cost-effective way. We now are way more on Instagram, and TikTok is coming, and Facebook and all of that, more than we are on Snapchat, because we realized that certain platforms are just better for certain things. So Snapchat was great for really cost-effective brand awareness. But Instagram is a little bit better if we want to tell a little bit more of a story. If we want someone to stay on a little bit and see a transformation, we're going to push that content more on IG. But again, for everyone's business, you'll start to see, but you have to test it. You can't just do one and think that it's going to be it. So again, that takes a little bit of budget. It takes a little bit of time. But the sooner you can start that and get leading indicators of success, the faster you can then decide where you want to continue to invest in. But I mean, Snapchat ended up being super cost effective. So we leaned in there. And again, like, you have to have the right creative content for that platform. If we were just posting about a wig, it would not have gone to 10K. You know what I mean? Like, we had a very clear value prop. We had a very clear differentiation from another brand. And we had a cohesive brand that looked and felt like me. And so when you have that, it helps. It really, really does. So ads are just the spend, and where you're spending is just as important as what you're actually putting in that ad.
Yeah. So branding was on point. You took time to create the content, and you knew that, if we want people to spend money, we have to look like money.
I mean, truly, I mean, we weren't asking for $10. And like, for us, again, as a beauty brand, but also a tech brand, like, we couldn't say, oh, free this or try free, like, it's $10. No, we are asking people to hand over hundreds of dollars to a brand that they have never heard of, and to be with something as intimate as their hair. They show up every day to work in this thing, right? And so we had to really kind of bring a level of respect to that and say, hey, look, like, we had to tell our story. We had to say who we were. We had to really come correct. And I think like that just, it really took off. And we've kept that going, even with the rebrand. We learned from our customers from, our hair intelligence chapter, refined a bit more, but like, I think that's okay. I think sometimes people get nervous to start ads, or even like picking the name or the colors or whatever. Just do something.
Get change. You can always pivot.
It's okay. Just have data to make that decision. And for us, we didn't. So we had to do what we could, and then we changed when we got more data.
Yep. I am so glad that you mentioned that, and you were just open to sharing that you guys, were hair intelligence at one point and you pivoted, because I'm telling you, I meet so many people, they're like, oh my God, like, if I pivot, I have to do this grand big announcement. I'm like, no, you don't. Nobody knows who you are right now. Just
that exact. I think that's what really put it into perspective for us. I can't remember if it was our brand partner or not. Anyway, essentially we looked at it and said, okay, we've got, at that time, I think we had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 on Instagram. I have my personal platform that has a few thousand on it that we had shared. But in reality, we realized there's probably 10,000 to 15,000 people in the world that know who we are. So they'll go through a change curve, but no one else knows. And that was worth it. It was okay.
And what are they going to do if you change it? Like, what are they going to do to you?
Oh, well, and trust me, the girls, some of the girls were upset about taking away hair intelligence. Yeah. I mean, hair intelligence it was an era in my mind. It was a little bit of a different brand feel. And I think sometimes, when you meet something or someone and that's your first impression, it's sort of hard to say like, okay, like I'm now having to accept a different version of that. I think for us, we did make some level of announcement around it. So I wrote a blog about the transformation from hair intelligence to Parfait, the purpose of it. But I also think that during that rebrand, we were already sort of telling our community, hey, what do y'all think of these names? What do y'all think of these fonts?
What do you data,
think
talking to your customers.
Yes, yes. And I think like bringing our community along as we were building behind the scenes, like, I mean, talking about what we had achieved in our first year and sending it to that list at that time, those are the moments where I think even if someone's not going to buy a wig, or, you know, in another company not going to buy a particular product, they could still be a brand advocate for you, to their sister, to their brother.
Hey girl, I know about this company. Yeah.
Yeah, because they see the authenticity, they see the work, they see the reality of, hey, it's not easy, but they're focused on learning and growing. And every time they get feedback, they include it into the next iteration. That's just how we operate at Parfait. We'll always continue to operate on a very customer-centric, feedback-driven, you know, mentality. But again, I think if you're not willing to put yourself out there and you're scared to sort of build that list or put yourself, you won't be able to talk to the people. So you just have to find, our wait list was a way to talk to people. And so if you can find a way to talk to people even before they're purchasers, you also get to figure out very quickly who is not your customer. Yeah. And you can start refining who you are and realizing you can't serve everybody. So rather than trying to stretch, finding that customer, because you will start to see behaviors, you will start to see who's responding, who's not. Learn about that customer, you start seeing segments form. So there's just so many benefits to having a wait list, other than like it's sounding cool to have a wait list.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna ask. So I know people want to hear about, you know, the fundraising journey, and I want to make sure we stay out time for questions. But so you guys had this, you know, 10K plus wait list before you like officially launched. And then, you know, now like you can go on to myparfait.com right now and you can make a purchase. So what was the process like in converting or trying to convert, you know, the people on your wait list to actual paying customers? Because, you know, of course you have the signups, you have the data, and you're able to talk to them, but you also want them to buy from you eventually, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That is the goal. That is the goal. And like, let's be real, 10,000 people, everybody didn't buy a wig. Yeah. And so I think for us, it's like, you have to define what success is for the 10,000. And it's not that 10,000 convert. It's 10,000 give you some form of data that tells you who will convert, that gives you indicators of, hey, they would have converted, but they don't like that we only have this style of hair. They actually want, you know, we had a lot of older women. They want, you know, gray, like salt and pepper hair. Yeah. We don't have salt and pepper, so they're not buying, but they're still supporting. They're still telling us what are those other colors people want. So I think for us, it's, and for anybody having a wait list, like just because everyone doesn't buy your product doesn't equal that wait list is not successful. It still gives you information to tell you what you did right and what you did wrong, but also what future demand could potentially look like if you groomed them into something else. So a lot of our wait list members were people who had never been able to wear a wig because of their head size, or because, you know, their stylist told them you have a low hairline, you can't wear a lace closure or lace frontal, or they've never known how to braid hair and they live in a city where they don't have access to like lace magicians. And so they've just never been able to play in this world. And we have now given them the ability to say, hey, like you can do this, there's support for you. And so some of those windows for conversion are longer, but what we have been doing is essentially creating content to help those different people. So we have content that's curated for beginners, there's content created for expert wig wearers, and everywhere in between. And we'll wait it out. I mean, we'll be here for a while, so we'll wait it out. But again, like if I didn't know why such and such didn't purchase, I couldn't then be able to refine my strategy for the one who could. So I think, you know, conversion was what it was. We had already been having some of them actually be our beta testers also. So it's kind of like a squishy subject there. Yeah. But I will say we had lots of success with the wait list. The wait list really carried us through, quite frankly, our fundraise that would then propelled our business forward. So there's, lots of successes from the wait list, y'all. I highly recommend a wait list. It's actually more valuable than I would have ever expected. And it's way more capable. Like we are more capable of building lists than I think it looks from the outside. You just have to test a ton to figure out what your exact channel is, and then make a quick decision and invest heavily in that channel.
Yeah. Two quick follow-up questions, and then we're going to talk about fundraising. Number one, did you use any particular tools or software when, looking at data outside of course, sending surveys or hopping on a call with them? Like, is there any tools that you use that you would recommend the people looking to?
For customer research?
Yeah, like customer research or yeah.
Like digital marketing tools. I mean, one thing I did do, what was that website called? We hosted giveaways. That was another element. Sorry, I meant to mention about our wait list. So there was a reward system attached to our wait list. So let's say if you took particular actions, you then got bumped up further on the wait list. Kickoff labs.
Find it and drop it.
Yes. Kickoff labs it basically allows you to reward people who sign up for the list. If they then follow you on Instagram, they get 5 more points. If they then refer a friend, they get 7 more points. So that was sort of like a gamification of our wait list aspect that was outside of ads. But in terms of customer research, we also used a platform called Pollfish that allowed us to survey people who were not in our email list. So if you don't have an email list yet, Pollfish is a great option. There is a cost element to it, but you can do small groups, you can do large groups. And you get data back in 2 to 3 days. I mean, it's really, really, really fast. And you can ask people anything. And you can also define who your audience is in that survey audience. So if you're looking for a particular demo, income level, location, it's really, really helpful. So do not sleep on Pollfish. Personally, I think that has been the best survey mechanism outside of our own customers, because even on social, you can do a little poll on social and get some information. But you kind of need to also triangulate who that person is to what they're saying and how they feel about things. And Instagram doesn't do as well with that. But if you want to do a quick poll about, hey, do you guys like this name or that name, and have people, that's perfect. But if you want to understand, hey, what would you pay for this or that? And then you change something slightly and say, okay, if I did this, would you pay more? Would you pay less? And they can be honest about that. And then you can see, are these women who are older saying this different answer than people who are younger, coastal, experience level with that said product or industry? There's just way more depth of knowledge in those Pollfish style surveys than not. I would just recommend, I have a background in surveys. Like I mentioned, I was at Capital One doing customer experience insights. Did a lot of surveys in my life. So we and at Wharton, they kind of taught us. So just be sure before you spend the money using Pollfish. Again, those courses, they may seem corny, but they are helpful. Just understand what levers you can pull just to make it work as hard as it can for you.
Yeah, I saw Tennessee Watt in the comments. She asked, did you feel like you needed an MBA to pivot into full-time entrepreneurship? I was going to ask a question about raising capital, but I wanted you to go ahead and address that because I don't know. You answer. I don't want to answer for you.
They overlap a little bit. Okay, so do you need an MBA to be an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. I was an entrepreneur before I was in my MBA program. What the MBA program does at the end of the day is open doors and gives you access. If you can go raise money without having a door opened and the access you have already, you're fine. People like us who look like us normally don't have that. And so I think as an entrepreneur, if I wanted to raise millions of dollars, I could not have done that without Wharton on my resume. Not gonna lie, no, I'm not. So let me break that down a little bit though. If you're interested in an MBA, I obviously found my co-founders in my MBA program. So I think as an entrepreneur, you go there on a mission to start something and to find people to help you start it, to learn a particular skill. I know a lot of people who may have engineering backgrounds or maybe investment banking background want to start a business, but have no clue about marketing or no clue about manufacturing, whatever. Business school is a great place to sort of get nuts and bolts of that, and then meet somebody who was the head of strategic partnerships at Instagram, and they'll break everything down. You know what I mean? That's a great reason to go to an MBA program, but an MBA is not going to teach you how to run your business day to day. I hope that no one thinks that that's what an MBA program would do, because you're going to be disappointed. But I think if you can value the MBA, yeah, if you can value the MBA of what it is in terms of gaining a specific skill, if you have no other place to find it that is, high level, very detailed, it's great. The brands, if you go to a top business school, that brand 100% helps you if you look to raise money. And then I'll kind of even go back further and say, I had entrepreneurship experience prior to Wharton, but my entire, case to Wharton about why they should let me in is because I know kind of how to do this, but I've never scaled it. I've never made $1 million in revenue. I don't know what to do when I get to that point. I don't know who to call when I get to that point. And so I think there is this difference between running a small business or being self-funded, self-made. You'll be fine, right? But I knew I wanted to be at the point where I was dealing with millions of dollars, and in a way that I felt like I wasn't by myself. Yeah. And I didn't have anybody in my family who had ever done anything like that. So the MBA, it just worked out for me in that way. And then, in terms of fundraising, I mean, our founding team is 2 Black women, MIT PhDs, 2 Black women, Wharton MBAs, all the top, 100 companies. I'd be lying and say that those brands didn't. It doesn't look
impressive. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody was at least willing to speak to us at that point.
Yeah.
And getting in the door is half the battle. Yeah. A lot of people said no. And a lot of people didn't understand why we were making wigs, and wigs are weird. Why are people wearing wigs?
Yeah.
It's a little awkward sometimes, but then they're like, well, they're smart. They've got experience in this and that. If anyone's going to take down this $13 billion market, it's probably some people with a little bit more experience, but also understand the community a little bit deeper than some of these other hair companies that are not woman-owned, not Black owned, especially, and quite frankly, are not serving customers well. At the end of the day, we're in this stage where you are buying a wig online and you've got small, medium, and large if you're lucky, and it doesn't match our skin tone. And if you think about it, that's like buying out of 3 shades of makeup, buying jeans in small, medium, and large. There's no reason why there should not be sizes. What? Yeah. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that online.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I buy wigs or hair online, I'll typically do 1B, because I know for sure. And I love color, but it seems risky.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's risky. And you don't know what you're going to get. And most of the time it doesn't look like what the photo is, because the photo isn't actually the product.
Come on.
So it's a terrible experience. And I mean, like I mentioned, the co-founders at Parfait, we all experienced it in our own ways, more than not, spent way too much money on terrible wigs, terrible extensions, lace that doesn't melt. And we just are taking all of that to get us to just really well-fitted wigs from a head size perspective and skin tone, and not making you figure it out as the customer how to make it all work. We're doing all that work for you.
I love it. Y'all are a blessing for sure.
Thank you.
I want to get into some of the questions, but I do want to ask, and if we have time, I'll ask more of the fundraising type of questions, but I've got DM'd several questions and there's some here. And so I want to give the people what they want for sure. But one quick question before we step into Q&A. I know for sure there are founders here that are, pre-revenue. They probably have little to no traction. What would you say should they be focused on right now if they want to pitch investors, whether it's a VC or they're trying to apply for an accelerator program and get funding from that? What kind of tips can you give to them?
Ooh, okay. There's a lot of things. I will say it depends how much you're willing to invest in your business before someone else invests. It doesn't always take thousands and thousands of dollars, but in this day and age, if you are going to be a brand that's building itself online, those eyeballs don't often come for free if you're not coming from a platform that already exists. So I had a decent amount of people, but starting Parfait, we started from scratch. And so we see what it's like when no one comes to the website. You know what I mean? Because no one knows you exist. So there is an element of be honest about what it's going to take for people to know that you exist. And it costs just say 1.5x more than you think it does. It costs more than we expect every time. And you cannot depend on virality. And I think a lot of times these days you think, hey, I'm just going to be creating content and one of these are going to pop. It could, and it probably will, and I hope it does for you. Yeah. But you can't build your business on that happening, because it's not going to be dependable enough. So if I were starting from scratch today, I would focus, number one, on content, pushing that content out on places where people interact with that style of content. So depending on what you're selling, you need to be talking to those people and where they are. And even if it's simply you sharing what you've learned, I think one of the biggest things is sharing value immediately. Pour into a community before you expect something back from them. So before you expect an email, before you expect someone to support you, what are you giving them? So definitely pour in. And a lot of times the best way we can pour into as we're building a product or whatever is letting people try the product, teaching people why this product matters, helping people understand like the problem that they have that your product solves doesn't have to stay a problem. All that can be content. All that is stuff that we can do ourselves. And I know that not everybody is a marketer. Find a cousin, a sister, a brother, somebody to help you create this content, because that is FREE most of the time. Yeah. And that you can put out and start ranking on SEO. You can start building a following on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Pinterest. We're in a day and age now where social platforms don't just disappear anymore. They sort of have like resurgences. Yeah. So like YouTube is what I'm eyeing right now. Very, very clearly. I mean, obviously everyone's looking at TikTok. There's a lot to be done around TikTok SEO strategy. They're really building TikTok in the search engine capacity. So that's easy, again, free. Just understanding what your target customer is looking for, what they need help with, and starting to be a thought leader in that space and creating content around that. And then get their email. Somehow get their email, because you want to continue that conversation. And you know what you can do when you walk into a VC's office is say, hey, I've got 10,000 people who are engaged, who care about what I'm putting out. They're telling me their problems. They're telling me that if I did this via survey, if I did this, they would do that. They would pay this. That's enough, especially in a pre-seed space, to get you some meetings, right? I also would say too, one of the biggest things about pre-seed fundraising or your first fundraising aspect is making sure you can tell the story of you and your business as well as possible. It has to make sense. It has to make sense why you as a founder are building this said business. What unique capabilities or access or experiences do you have that makes you uniquely competent and capable of not being just a really great business in this market, but being a unicorn in this market? These investors, they want to 10x their stuff. They're not going to give you a few, $100,000 or a few $1,000s to just be a great business in sort of your community or whatever. And there's actually nothing wrong with that. It's funny, in business school, we talked a lot about that. Like, it is okay to not raise money. You do not have to raise money. You can be just fine. You can build generational wealth without taking a dime from anybody else. And those KPIs are different than if you want to take money from other people. But if you want to be a unicorn, like we do, you need to be making real traction. And that's like numbers, data, people telling you something that tells the investor, hey, they're onto something. They're starting to see some traction. And again, that traction can be pre-revenue, but if it's pre-revenue traction, it's got to be a little bit bigger. It can't be 1,000 people. It's got to be a little bit more oomphy.
You got to take time out to do that. You can't just say, I have this idea today, and then 2 months later, I'm going to start. It doesn't work like that.
And I would say too, the 2 months later aspect brings up, the time it takes to prep and the time it takes to research what you're really working with and how big your market can really be, and being able to articulate that to investors. Because sometimes, especially businesses that are often people of color or minorities build, are solving a problem that we deal with more intensely, not alone, but often more intensely than other people. And so it's harder for us to raise money, or we don't know how to connect with these folks to get them to understand where we are, to look past some biases, to look past the fact that we don't have an Ivy League degree, but can still do the same thing that someone from Stanford can. And so there's a little bit of sort of storytelling that we have to get really, really solid on. But that also equals like big ass market. So the story tell about that big ass market and say again why your product would solve it more uniquely, and show that people are already telling you that they need this, that they want this, and that they're willing to pay some, estimated amount to get you off the ground.
Yep. You doing the research. You are the you have to do their research. You absolutely talk to your customer.
If y'all have not been on TikTok recently, there's the pink sauce lady.
I heard about it yesterday. I don't know how I'm so late to the game. I heard about it yesterday.
It's the perfect example of she is, I feel for her because she has a product, people love it, and she's trying to meet that demand. She's doing what she can with what she knows and what she has. Yeah. But there is a lack of respect I have for people who don't do their research to build a business. And so even the moment where she was like, oh shit, this is taking off, okay, what do I need to do? I need to build a business. Okay, LLC. This is a product that I'm shipping. Can I ship liquids? Does this have a shelf life? There's testing. There's all kinds of rules and regulations around that stuff. And she would have found that laundry list of things with one Google search, right?
Yeah.
And so
take the time. I think we're so quick to want to just get something out. I'm gonna dive into some of these other questions, and I promise I'm not gonna try to get to as many as we can. So don't be mad at me if we can't get to your particular question. I'm so sorry. So one person just asked, how did you go about keeping your list warm? So, you have this huge wait list. I think anybody who has collected emails, they know that sometimes people, they just don't, they stop working with you after a while. So how did you keep your list warm? Did you deliver what you wanted to them? What did you do?
Yeah, so I would say, early on, we did not do a good job of this. I mean, we're starting to get thousands of people on this list and we didn't have content for them. And we didn't have time to create emails every week. So what we were doing was utilizing social content. So we would make a YouTube video tutorial, batch create that, put that in an email and say, hey, here's some content, and just put it around in another platform. But yes, you have to sort of figure out who cares about what type of content. MailChimp is great, but I will say we transitioned to Klaviyo, and Klaviyo does such a better job of helping you understand who's clicking what. So if you have multiple pieces of information in an email, right? And you don't know how many people click, but you don't know what they clicked. Klaviyo allows you to see who clicked it exactly, their email. So I could say, hey, Susan, I know you were interested in the YouTube video we shared. Here's another one that shows another style in that wig, right? Klaviyo allows you to do that. I never saw that in some of those MailChimps and some other ones that we tried on. So I think we're in this world where you get less and less data and feedback from advertising campaigns, from social. You're not able to triangulate that data to learn something about your customers. But Klaviyo, that depth of data around who's doing what and when, even if you don't keep those leads warm, you know more about the warm leads. And so, yes, putting out the right content through email, and it can be different styles. So we would have categories of content. We would have, literally building behind the scenes. We show what we were doing that week. We did sort of bios on the founders. We did, like I said, tutorials. We would do, hey, do the survey and let us know what you think about some new features we're thinking about launching. So I think, again, bringing them into the fold and having them a part of this engaging conversation. Not every person in that 10,000 gave a damn about all the things we were doing, but we did start to.
Something probably stuck with some,
there was a solid 3 to 4K that were actively opening, actively clicking, and that was
and that's huge, y'all. That's really good data right there.
But it also tells you, though, the people that you get on that email need to actually care about what you're selling. So again, if your ad is targeted appropriately, the creative actually makes sense for what you're selling, you'll have better people in that pool. And even if they're saying, oh, for us, price is a big thing. We recognize our wigs are not the cheapest wigs, and there are other places people can go. So some of those people were like, hey, I'm here, but I really can't afford this, or this is something that's aspirational to me. We're always going to, be happy they're there, but that's not as warm of a lead, right? And so we curate content a little bit differently for that population than we do for our engaged population. So segmentation and understanding what populations are doing what, care about what content, just allows you to keep leads warmer because they're actually seeing stuff they care about and seeing stuff that they want to see versus seeing this like a lace, glue install when they've already told us they're glueless babes.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know how to do this when I get back home. Like it's cute when I'm at the salon. When I get home, how do I get it the same way? Yeah.
Yes. So we like to learn, who cares about what and curate content for them that way.
I'm going to talk or ask you a few more questions about that. I think we may have time for maybe 3 or 4 more questions.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I've gotten a few DMs all around, like, AI and how you guys use it. And so can you just briefly talk about, how you guys are using AI and integrating that into, I would call it the old names. I'm so sorry, but integrating into Parfait?
Yeah, that's okay. I would say, so the biggest part of the AI for us, so we have 2 sorts of technology that we incorporate into all of our wigs. There's computer vision technology, which is our ability to essentially take 4 selfies and size your head to a specific, cap size. So the selfies themselves, we have to analyze the data from that selfie, right? To understand the dimensions between this point to that point to figure out what that is. But then we take that data and we align it to a cap size that we have. So that connection between your image and what cap size it should be is the AI, right? Our AI, our model is saying, okay, you had this point and that point, so you fall into this bucket. That's one form. And then again, from that computer vision technology, we can also basically take like a little hex code from your skin and align it with the perfect lace tint for you. So again, we built that from scratch because there's not a lot of people like us in databases. So we had to build that from scratch. And so there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure we can pick up undertones and different shades and making sure we're matching lighting, because I could look much lighter here than I would if I literally just turned around the other way. And so there's a lot of little stuff like that our AI, we basically train the model to make sure that we're accounting for all these different scenarios that could exist when someone just takes the selfie. Like, it's just so crazy to think sometimes how we just want your selfie, but there's so much behind what happens with that. And so essentially you're aligned with your cap size and then you're aligned with your lace tint. And that was one of the biggest things we learned up front. Initially we were using lace tints that were already available on the market and saying, all right, we've got the information from the customer. We'll, use this off the shelf brand and put the lace tint and go. But we quickly realized that those lace tints were not enough. And oftentimes they were weird. So if you think about how back in the day with darker foundations, they would have like either a weird orange tinge or like a weird,
you gotta get the makeup out and you gotta
a weird sort of color, right? And so that was happening, especially for our darker skinned customers. Like their lace tint was not, and this was prior to us sending it to them, right? We have stylists who are a part of our team. I see a new one here. Tati just joined our team. But we realize, our stylists are a huge part of the development of our product. And so AI cannot give somebody the right lace tint without knowing what lace tint actually match someone in that skin tone to inform it, right? And so our stylists realized early on, this is not enough. And they're also not really great. We built all of our tints in-house. We have over 9 tints now that we use, and we constantly build out new tints because as we get more customers, we start seeing the nuances of shade and range and summer and winter and makeup on, no makeup on, how you contour, like all these things impact the tint of your lace. And so our goal is you put the lace on and it is melting into your skin. And so we spend a lot of time going back and forth.
Now, I told y'all earlier, this is one of the hottest new tech startups. And y'all, I don't know if y'all believe me, but I'm pretty sure y'all get it now. Sorry, keep going.
It's a real thing. It matters. It really matters. So AI is all in and out and through it. But I will say, something we like to say a lot is we have human assisted AI. So no matter what, a human is always going to validate, especially in these early days when we don't have as much data, still building out the algorithm and the database. We always have a human, and we have really, really phenomenal stylists here in Dallas who help us validate that and then continue to train the model to make sure that it's accurate. Our lace tint algorithm right now, 98% effective, 98% on point. It's insane. Our app has only been out for really, it got done in earlier April. So the fact that we have been able to match different women, you know, of all races, of all creeds, of all global spaces is incredible. And like huge shout out to our CTO Ifueko, Iso's sister. They're just laser focused on that. And so for me as a marketer, I can say confidently, yup, you're laceable. Yep. And so it's just, that's what I love about this team. It's like we each do a little bit of something that helps the other one get to do their job a little bit easier.
Shout out to y'all. I think we'll do one more question. Okay. And let me see. And I'm sorry guys, if I didn't get a chance to get to your question. Let me see. Okay,
so this is part 2, Brittany. We'll just have to do part 2.
I think we'll have to, and we'll ask the people.
Yes, ask the people if they want a part 2.
Yeah, if they want a part 2, and then maybe we'll get like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 topics that we'll just talk about, and that's what we'll do. So one thing I know we didn't talk about that much earlier that I see by someone named Lale. Hopefully I pronounced her last name right.
Right. Hey girl.
But she wanted to know, what advice do you have around doing proper market research and just gathering really strong data?
Oh, well, I will say the first things first, you have to scour the web for what's there. And if you can't find something, don't be surprised that it's not out there. Especially if you're looking at specific customer segments that are often marginalized, minority, understanding trends. Like a lot of times that stuff is, it doesn't exist. And so we do a lot of our own. So I'll say that. If I were starting out from scratch, McKinsey has great stuff. The big consulting firms have awesome, like 100-page, really detailed breakdowns.
I'll take time out and read it though, y'all. You have to do that.
Due diligence, research, it's a thing. Please block off a day. If you're building your business, block off a day to just go ham on that stuff. And I will say too, if you get bored early, it may not be the market for you. And that's a lesson, right? Like that's a key learning. It's like, I don't really want to sit here and learn about what women do with their hair all day. Us, we're obsessed. We're like, oh my God, women in here do this, and Jewish women are doing the same thing, but they're not. Like, that should be invigorating to you. And so if you find yourself doing research and you're like, oh my God, I can't stand this, it may mean that you maybe need to pivot a little bit in what niche you're going to be focused on or what area you're going to be focused on, especially when you're doing market research and you're looking to understand your problem deeper. If you're solving a real problem, the market research is actually like infuriate you a little bit. Like, why isn't this solved? Why hasn't someone done this? Like, why? Or just curiosity,
something
right?
Needs to happen inside. It can't.
Yeah, there should be an emotional reaction to
and
this.
And if not, that's okay.
That's okay. Keep sort of looking and feeling yourself being pulled to different areas. The place you stop is where you start to lose track of time. If you look up from a research report or you look up from learning about a customer or a product or a manufacturing system, whatever, and you lose track of time, that's a good sign. That's where you want to be. So, but McKinsey, Deloitte, like the big consulting firms, they've got, I mean, everything and anything about consumer behavior in the last 10 years, what it should look like in the future. Just download them all and read them all. It's super, super helpful.
Girl, I love it. Well, thanks again for hopping on. I can't wait for the next one. And y'all, thank y'all for tuning in. And again, you'll get the recap by the end of the week.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a good one, Brittany. Thank you for having me. Bye.